Join us as we jingle all the way to another exciting episode of the Indy Ball Report podcast. The long 2-week wait is over. Episode 304 is here from you now. This show isn't afraid of the grind.
I don't even know. I'm just in on this now.
The Ed, and Eddie of Baseball podcast is here for you at all hours of the night because the son of a shepherd would never leave you.
Double D is out here getting after it.
That's Ryan's next BuzzFeed article. Which Ed, and Eddie character is your baseball team?
Yeah, there you go. I don't hate it.
Okay, so which league is the Kanker sisters?
I'm not getting involved in that right now. I'm not doing this. Oh, I was going to say, following up on our now 2 weeks ago movie conversation, we were talking about things that are Christmas adjacent. I believe someone brought up to me that the movie In Bruges is a Christmas movie because through an apartment window at some point you see a Christmas tree.
Well, that doesn't mean anything.
Count it.
That does not count. I know from weirdos that leave their Christmas decorations up all year round.
Listen,
that does not count.
That's a Jersey problem. I don't know what to do for you.
It wasn't in Jersey.
It
was in New England.
That tracks.
Well, whilst we're still on the topic of Christmas, I think we got to keep the spirit of the season going by talking about winter wonderlands, don't you?
Sure, man. Why not?
So let's jangle our way over to our first topic of the week, which takes us to Kansas City, because that's an organization that is just having everything going right for it. Isn't that right?
I mean, what could ever go wrong? We need to make a little extra money. We'll host some events. What could be the problem?
I know. I mean, and if you want to say get a little bit more profitable or help a friend out, maybe you switch vendors for a popular event, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did a whole video on it. I don't necessarily blame the Monarchs fully for what's going on over there, but do you want to give the people a little bit of background, or do you just want to kick my way?
Yeah, no, I'll go ahead, throw a little bit of background down, then I'll throw it to you, because as you mentioned, on the Indy Ball Nation YouTube channel and podcast feeds, there's a whole video dedicated to talking about it that I believe is 18 minutes long.
Something like that.
I think it's 18.
Wow, really? Wow. That was longer than that video should have been. Brevity is not my strong suit.
Well, see, you have a white man's therapy, which is a podcast, so brevity was never something that we were expecting from you.
That's fair.
So, that being said, jingle with an exclamation point. That's why we said it like jingle, not just jingle. It's very important.
Jangle, different.
Respect the punctuation, people.
Facts.
It is a winter wonderland company. They go ahead to create, basically a winter light show with other events, sometimes skating rinks, sometimes other winter themed activities, make of that what you will. It's the kind of pop-up event you'll see at like music venues, baseball stadiums. It pops up in those kinds of venues that are really single-use venues that they toss out to make some extra money whenever that venue's off season is. So that's what they do. That's what they specialize in. And they've been in other independent parks. O'Fallon, Missouri's park, formerly home to the River City Rascals, hosted it. I believe there's also one out by Springfield, Missouri. I think it's an Ozark, if I'm not mistaken, which would then be, would it be like the Springfield 66ers or something like that, I think?
Oh, God, asking the wrong guy on that one.
It's a summer college thing. I think Jordan George is involved with that team, if I'm not mistaken, former Fargo Moorhead Red Hawk. More importantly, Kansas City had an event like this last year, but they have apparently switched vendors to Jingle this year, and now a lot of the contractors are having this issue called they're not being paid, which kind of sucks, right? I mean, ask any former Gastonia honey hunter what it's like to not get paid, and they'll tell you it's less than ideal, boss. So we're talking tens of thousands of dollars just not being paid to various people, whether that be musicians and DJs, to other vendors that took part in the Jingle event, and that is the general summary problem. I'm sure Ryan will go into some of the history of this event at other venues, including potential injury, we'll call it. And the last kind of important point of this, which loops back to the introduction of this topic, is Jingle has former Monarchs GM Mark McKee as an employee and high-ranking member of the organization. So it kind of feels like in this case they were doing a homeboy a solid, and his house was not exactly in order, and now the Monarchs are eating this one because this is taking place in their ballpark, even though it's not really their fault. It's more like this is the third party's thing. They're the ones that put it on. They just did it in our house. But to a certain extent, you are responsible for the vendors you pick. You could have vetted it better and picked the right guy. But hey, if they're not doing the job from which they said they were going to do, it chiefly falls on them.
Yes. Where to begin on this one? I mean, you kind of hit it, but the quick version again is, so Enchant it's this company from up in Vancouver. It started as like a couple guys doing
Enchant would be the previous group, or?
Yes.
Okay,
so
just clear that
up. So they started as just like a local thing up in Vancouver, doing like a light maze type of thing, like in their neighborhood, I think in their own yard. And then from there, I'm trying to remember exactly how it went, but I think they went down to like Texas to do an event, and that went well. And then after that, they ended up eventually landing in Kansas City with the Monarchs last year, and it went quite well. It was very well received. And then it was announced that they would be coming back again to do it again this year. However, what changed was, for whatever reason, and there's no real reason cited publicly at this point, Enchant it decided, instead of running the event fully, they decided they were going to instead lease out their equipment, I guess is the best way to say it, to this new company, Jingle run by Mr. McKee, as you referenced there, the former CEO of the Monarchs, who left on, I'm hearing maybe not the best terms from the organization. So interesting, they're still working with them. But he did seem to have a familiarity with Enchant after working, I would assume, with them a bit last year when they were in Kansas City. So he seemed to know somewhat of what he was getting into. They decided to expand to 3. Yes, what do you have for me, Nick?
Okay, just wanted to clarify one thing. So
sure.
Kansas City hired Enchant then hired Jingle, or is it that Enchant's now the picture and Kansas City went right to Jingle? Just want to make that.
No, so Jingle and Kansas City are in business together. It feels, and that's what's interesting. So I don't know if Enchant decided maybe they were spread too thin to fully run the events all the way around, but they have all this. At that point, you've already done multiple locations. So you have, I'm sure, a ton of equipment and things like that. So I think either they then chose to lease the equipment to Jingle, or I'm not sure. It could have been they have an agreement to, like, Jingle will take that stuff and run it on their behalf, essentially, but it is
essentially
named Jingle. Enchant, their name really was not on it this year. So,
okay. So it feels more like either Enchant got dropped from the thing, or they just subcontracted certain events in certain markets to this party.
Not doing this, it does seem like Enchant made the decision. That's what it felt like to me, that to not do it on their own this year and to have another company involved. Or now, whether it was because they offered or they knew they wanted that, I'm not sure the dynamic there. But the way it ends up playing out is the event it's certainly not as good as it was last year when it was Enchant. The promises were not met for the people who went. There was some discontentment with the paying consumers in Kansas City, a lot more in St. Louis, where, like, after just a few days, people were calling for that to be shut down and investigated, including a woman who broke her leg on, like, a sketchy tubing slide that they had built. So there is a lot to that. I'm not trying to get too in the weeds, because in reality, it comes back to some main points, because at this point now we have some vendors not being paid. Kansas City Monarchs are saying they have not been paid by Jingle. there's a lot of people who are now left out, and there were kind of some red flags here across the board. So it's easy once, Kansas City had the taco truck fiasco last year that messed up their field and they ended up having to move games to UK's ballpark for a few games. It's easy to jump on them and be like, hey, man, like my initial instinct, the reason I even looked into this was, okay, like this, you get 2 bad results from events within a year. Like that's kind of a you problem. And I'm not going to say they're fully, free from blame here, but I think a lot of people, Jingle is at fault here. They ran a bad event. They seem to have been over their head. And there is an email here from McKee to his employees, like basically it's like, hey, you're not getting paid this week, which like they were talking to one employee and she was like, yeah, well, I can't pay rent now. Thanks. Like happy holidays, basically. I'm just trying to go off the top of my head here on kind of how this all went, but McKee, he was straight up about it. He was just like, yeah, we do not have the money. We're hoping we will have the money shortly and be able to pay out your checks, which is, almost refreshingly bad, because I know at certain organizations I've been at, they'll do the whole, there's a mix up with the bank because of a holiday or something like that, and try to like buy some time for not being able to get a check in your account. He seems pretty straight up about McKee's just like, yeah, there's no money. So I don't know what it is. My feel for how this might have gone down is Enchant already knew that they probably were going to try to go, maybe not as expansive across the country for operations purposes this year, which would, sort of have this sort of leasing or subletting arrangement with their stuff. McKee saw an opportunity, saw how successful Enchant was last year, and decided he could do that, and immediately got in over his head and realized maybe he wasn't as good of a businessman. And then this is the result. And, I think Kansas City does need to be held somewhat responsible for this, because it seems like they had some red flags on McKee already from previous work with him and chose to ignore it and work with him again. And Enchant needs to be somewhat responsible, because even if this was like the first type of arrangement they've done like this, which I'm not sure it feels like it might be, still, didn't do enough background on that one, and you are responsible for the things that you're involved in. But yeah, this mostly comes down to Jingle and McKee, though, because he is the center point of this ineptitude. And really leaving some people in a bad spot here right around the holidays, which is very classy.
It does feel like a systemic problem with a lot of American Association operators, though, because you saw issues with Rosemont's Light Festival in the past, where they had to switch from, I think it was like a Maze Light Festival to Sparkle Light Festival due to an alleged breakdown in that relationship. So you have that. You have just some of the events they pick. They have been known to beat the hell out of the fields and whatnot. And so while I don't doubt a lot of this does fall on Jingle, it does fall on McKee here, at least for, these outcomes and not playing contractors, any injuries to patrons, things like that, not doing your due diligence. That does fall on the contractor there more so than the actual facility. But to bring it just back to how it relates to the organizations themselves, I think it just, again, highlights how you have a lot of organizations that prioritize filling blank dates and trying to get those alternative revenue streams more than they prioritize getting the right people running them and just hoping it works out and dealing with the outcomes.
Yeah. Well, there's also the added couple thoughts here, which I find interesting. Considering Kansas City, the Monarchs' past relationship with McKee, and just any professional relationship, I was surprised in their statement, which I will pull real quick. There we go. Because their statement was very upfront about the situation. It said they are aware of questions and concerns regarding Jingle, an event at Legends Field run by Jingle Holiday. The Monarchs are not involved with planning, managing, or executing the event. And unfortunately, like many vendors and partners, we have not been compensated for costs associated with renting Legends Field for the event as stipulated in our contract, which is very straightforward. And then they give the contact info for Jingle, which is really funny.
Yeah.
So they did not really hesitate to directly put it on them. Of course, some of that is shedding your own blame. I'm sure.
They want to protect their own ass.
For sure. But also, there's ways to do that where you don't put somebody else in front of it. There's a way to do it where it's like, oh, we're sorry this happened. We're working with all the involved parties to figure out what's going on here, make things right, whatever. They went, no. These people, don't even talk to us about these people. That's interesting. And it does, you don't do that.
They really haven't been paid yet. So they're like,
yeah.
Look,
and you don't do that unless you can feel confident that that's not going to come back and get you for something. So,
yeah.
Other than that, the other one that stuck out is now if I got dropped this little tidbit and I followed up with some people around the situation, does seem to check out that, but it's not 100% confirmed. I mean, we're trying, but it's hard to confirm things 100% because it has to do with the contracts being signed. And I'm sure only a handful of people have ever seen those, but it does sound like that Jingle is like contractually obligated to pay for getting the playing surface restored and fixed after the event, which is not an out of place thing in a contract like that. So the obvious concern again is they just had these field issues, just had to fix it at great expense. And now they have this event, and the company that in their contract agreed to fix the field afterwards is saying they're out of money. So that does not bode well once again for the playing surface at Legends Field.
I wonder how that affects players going there, right? Like at some point in this episode, I think we were planning on trying to get to a conversation about, teams and organizations that you want to be a part of and not be a part of. And this feels like one of those areas where I would tell players, be aware of the surface you're going to be playing on, for your health, right? Because you get injured, you're really putting yourself behind the eight ball because you're losing however many weeks worth of games. You're losing however many weeks worth of tape. You're missing however many weeks worth of stat gathering and scout's eyes that could be on you. And more than that, depending on when this is, it's going to make it that much harder for you to get into winter ball. Forget, MLB or foreign contract. Forget that for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Odds are your goal is you're going to play your Indy ball season May through September. And then sometime around November, you're going to go and play winter ball somewhere. That's more than likely what your plan is. And it's probably going to be November to January-ish. So that's your general range there. And then hopefully you catch on somewhere with a spring training invite for February. More than likely not going to happen. So then you take February off, more or less, not off, but you recover from baseball activity for that because you've been playing a lot of baseball. And then you revamp and try to angle for something in April or May. That's more than likely your year. So the last thing you want is to have to spend time rehabbing an injury or laid up on the shelf with an injury. And depending on what that is, it could be something minor, like rolling an ankle, or it could be your foot gets caught on the turf and you tear 2 ligaments in your knee, and now you're not able to walk for a month and a half, and you're not able to do any baseball activity for nearly 2 months. And that is that's your winter plan right there. So that, I'm not trying to make it a huge deal here, but this is one of the things where I'm like, check the field. Check the field.
Yeah, make sure you're asking the right questions for sure.
Exactly. Make sure the guys that are, running the team are giving you not the answer you want to hear, but a good answer.
That's a key point. Yeah. Can't just be saying, it'll be fine. Be like, how do you know? How is this going to work? Is this really going to shape up the way you think it will? Anyway.
Exactly. But yeah, so that is the Jingle situation. It was more noteworthy because of Kansas City's involvement in it, where after their taco festival, you got to start watching some of these events because we'd like to avoid having cigarette butts and broken glass in the outfield again.
Right. And we also just talked about, too, when for the Q&A episode, we got a question about, potentially teams putting in turf. And I did mention, turf helps in this situation, but don't sleep on the fact that turf is really expensive, and you got to schedule a lot of events to make that worth your while added onto your baseball schedule. So, because a lot of people are like, oh, should I get turf? I'm like, well, not necessarily. So there's a lot there. And also turf is the devil. But that's a different conversation. But yeah, wanted to throw that in at the end there too, because it was a recent conversation for us.
Exactly. I think it goes back to in Washington as they're putting in turf, and it has to be the right market for events, right? I mean, like
Right.
Washington, PA, I assume they ran the numbers and I assume they have the connections because they do seem to do a lot where they can go and have a lot of events there. But traditionally, I would say market that gets a lot of snow and is cold and is really not usable for like 3-4 months of the year. Maybe turf isn't a great investment when like you have baseball for 3 months, 4 months, and
now, of course, keeping up the field, the actual grass fields over that time also costs money. So it is. Yeah. There's a balancing act you have to figure out, but
yeah,
that's all. It's not. I would just caution people who kind of have. I've seen a couple of opinions that are like, "Well, should have just done this." I'm like, well, not the most profitable team. That's a good bit of money.
Exactly. So we'll keep moving. We got some staff hirings of note here. I will also just say before we get too deep into this episode, if you hear me trying to, clear my nose, I apologize for that.
Gross.
But
disgusting.
I very much like breathing. So we're going to try and mute ourselves whenever we, go to continue to breathe. But
disgusting.
I know I should just suffocate. That's really the answer to this question.
So I've been saying.
Oh, God, but we can't lose 2 independent league shows in 2 weeks. That's too many.
I'll keep it going. Over on Indy Ball Nation.
Where would they find that?
Wherever the hell.
Would they find you talking about Boise's new manager that they just hired?
Maybe, sure. Weird late announcement. This has basically been done for like over a month, which is interesting.
That we're just announcing this cash money hire.
Happy when you're happy.
I wasn't happy that I made that joke.
Good. Shouldn't be. Don't deserve it.
Boise hired Cash Beauchamp as their new manager. He's been at Indy Ball for like 2 decades now. Managed Ogden recently. Won a PBL title. The Pioneer League, as some would call it.
The Peebers.
Yeah, the High Altitude League. The Mountain
Leagues.
You
go. The Elevation Station. Yeah, I feel you.
Dude, that is the rebrand right there. The Elevation Baseball League. Let's get this.
Oh, yeah. Except that church has that. So you're going to have to fight off Stephen Furtick and his crap theology. We'll deal with that another time.
We're just picking fights this week.
I know. Hey, man. I mean, you've picked most of the other ones. I'm just around. But yeah.
Lordy.
I don't know. I mean, that's a good move for Boise. I think he's a guy with a proven track record of winning in this league. Boise, I think, had to do something. They've kind of just been stuck in the mud a little bit. So, yeah. I mean, are you and I kind of on the same page on this one?
Yeah, I think he's an experienced manager. Obviously, he has connections across the board prior to going back into Indy Ball. I think in 2019, 2021, right in that range. He was a scout for the Diamondbacks too for Indy Ball, so he clearly has connections there. We've mentioned in the past, I think 2 weeks ago and a little bit before that even, how the Pioneer League's kind of supplanting the Frontier League in terms of the tiers, and guys are getting signed out of the Pioneer League more, and how you have that younger class of player, and that's a little bit more attractive if you're going to be picking up a guy, right? If you're going to be picking up a dude that's going to be a low AA guy to high, single to A+ ball player, you'd rather have a dude that's 23, 24 than a guy that's 25, 26. There's just a better shot than developing and hanging around there. I mean, hell, a 26-year-old that's in high A ball, not a great look, buddy. But any event, I do think he helps in that regard and does kind of set them apart a little bit in that area. But overall, I think it is a solid hire. And also keeping in mind that the Pioneer League, I don't think necessarily gets the flashing managerial signings always, right? Like, look at your Todd Pratt types where it's, I recognize that name. He's a former guy. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's Pratt.
That's not negative. I love that.
Yeah. It's just like you get more of a flashier name. You get that occasionally, but it normally comes at the expense of coaching experience, right? And then occasionally you will get like a Michael Schlatt who's just like, I love Missoula. I love Montana. I'm going to
Bury me
here.
under this pitcher's mound.
Bury me in the shadows of the Rocky Mountains. But
Right.
like, and when you get a guy like that, obviously you keep extending the man. He keeps winning and he builds a great culture and he builds a great team. And so we'd like a little bit more in the postseason, but hey, we're not going to nitpick. And
hard to do.
Yep. Guys like that you keep, but you look around the rest of the way and there's not that many flashy guys that if we were to do our, manager report card grades again, which I think we should, and then immediately a Mike Pinto on the following week again to discuss.
I know, right?
Just
it will be like it will be so fast. It'll be like one of those like post shows that they'll do, like after a TV show, like a TV episode drops. Then they have one to break down the episode. That would just be what that is.
Exactly. We'll just keep doing that. Keep bringing it. That's the bit. We're gonna keep the bit alive and going. But
see what bulletin board material we can give this year.
Exactly. Maybe we can go ahead and get him out of that last place spot.
Jeez.
Hey, it clearly didn't work last year.
Damn.
I don't pull punches.
No comment. I got nothing. You've been emboldened by the much more open pathways in the indie ball podcast landscape.
A little bit of that, a little bit surviving illness, positives all the way around.
Oh, maybe.
I do think Cash is a generally good hire for what you normally would see here. You get a bunch of either unproven guys or a bunch of guys that have a big name, maybe not always the big results. And then your occasional really solid hire.
Yeah. And again, it's just huge that experience is so important. Just the value of not having a complete dumpster fire to worry about and pay your way out of for the on-field products to allow you to focus on the, fan focused stuff, fan centric stuff is how I should have said that.
So also just to backtrack to one thing here, I had mentioned the Springfield, Missouri team, and I thought that it took place in a summer college park, right? I'm thinking I may have been mistaken now. I have to do a little bit more on this, but it looks like it may be Hammond's Field where the AA Springfield Cardinals play. So
wow,
we will update there. But whilst I look it up, I'll throw some red meat out there so that way there's not this awkward silence I have to cut out, which is Tri-City has a new assistant GM, Ed Krajewski. I'm going to assume that's how it is. It's a very Polish name, and that's always going to trip me up. It could also be Krajewski. That's probably a little bit closer. It's Krajewski. Make of that what you will. He's the team's new assistant GM, a Sierra College grad. Spent a lot of time in Miami. He was the director of marketing for Homestead Speedway down in Miami.
Hey, it's a great track.
I was going to say, the NASCAR guy's going to like that one.
Yeah,
was with the Panthers for a while, was with the Dolphins for a little bit. Spent 11 years as the ECAC assistant commissioner. So that's your college hockey conference. That has Quinnipiac and all the Ivies in it. So fairly highly ranking position. This is his 5th year with the team. The previous 4 were spent as the stadium's ops manager. If you go through his profile on the Valley Cat website, it really is a pretty impressive resume that he has. Seems to be big into marketing promotions, which, is kind of what you expect from the upper level front office positions. It's a lot of, running the team and promoting the product. So I think he's pretty spot on to that. The fact that he spent time in this market before is also a huge plus. And the fact that he came on when they went independent means it's straight up independent and straight up Miami. Those are really his 2 areas in all this. So I like it, at least on the surface. I think it looks really good. Familiarity with the organization, familiarity with the position to a certain extent. And I'm curious to see what he's going to wind up doing.
My bold take on the pronunciation is it's Ed Krajewski.
Krajewski.
That is the bold one I'm going to go for. I don't know if that's correct, but that's a shot I'm taking. Yeah, I don't have a lot to add on this one. You kind of summed up well. Very well experienced. Is one of the better assistant GM hires that I've seen. Honestly, Tri-State just kind of continues to seem to be running things right up there. Now that said, I'm ready for anything in my DMs. It's just like it's a torture chamber run. So yeah, I have not heard anything nightmarish, and they seem to be, from the outside looking in, to be making good moves. So yeah, that's about my thoughts on it. I hate to be that guy. It's an assistant GM role. We're not really going to bring it up unless something egregious happens or somebody just seems like a really good hire. And this guy seems like a really good hire.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really positive one. And I like to toss in some positive news every once in a while, just because we're always seeming like we're talking about like all these negative things and these bad hires and like, how could they do this kind of thing? But yeah, I like to throw in one where it's like, no, this is a really good hire on paper. I'd be surprised if it goes wrong. I like the way it looks. And
I love tempting fate.
I mean, they are well ran up there. Like, how often does it go wrong? I mean, we've criticized Tri-Cities hirings in the past, most notably Greg Taggart when they brought him on. And we were like, I don't know necessarily about this guy. And he generally seemed a lot better.
So far, so good.
Yeah, like I don't have too many complaints about that. So,
yeah,
they seem to know what they're doing. They've definitely earned my trust so far. So they got to lose it before I'm willing to really shine the harshest of lights on them. But yeah. Last piece of like substantive news, and then we have a little bit more of a discussion piece that we'll talk about in future weeks. But for now, the piece of news, the Red Hawks owner Bruce Tom has died. He bought the team and brought the team to Fargo in 95. He was 83 years old. I don't really think it's going to affect the operations all that much on account of his kid was already the president of the team. So it feels like it's just going to be kind of like everybody slide up one. So that's a positive. But yeah, a pretty stable indie ball team, pretty well ran team that's had some solid and really good years as of recent, has some change up front.
Yeah, it's not a person I've been overly familiar with just because, I've gotten into the full-blown indie ball thing within the past couple of years, and it seemed he was maybe less involved. But just from the outpouring of things, I've sort of started to learn more. I think it's pretty... a summary of this podcast could be, wow, it's hard to have a professional baseball team in insert town here. And I would say Fargo Moorhead pretty firmly fits that category. And this seems like a guy who really just committed to the area and decided to send it. And, has delivered a good product year in and year out. And, brought a lot of positivity to, the city, to the players on the field, and to the employees. And like, I think sometimes, it is just a baseball team, but I think there's moments where you should take a moment to step back and, note the amount of good that a baseball team can bring when it's done well. And it seems like this baseball team's done well. And that's a massive credit to somebody, especially over the sheer length of time that he was involved. So yeah, man, it's, I always feel bad when I feel like I learn about somebody just post-mortem, but it happens a lot because life moves fast. And I've been, since I started covering indie ball 5 years ago now, I've just been drinking through a fire. So, it's one of those things that if it's not right in front of me, I don't really learn. But now that I am learning more, I'm like, this is one of those people who, was a real pillar of a major indie ball league for years.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was one of the original guys. And so to lose that is certainly notable and is unfortunate that is the case. Yes, so that is about all there is for news, and I will put a pin finally in this whole Springfield situation. So, first and foremost, I was wrong twice.
My guy.
The Springfield thing. So, it's not Hammond Field. The Jingle one in Springfield, Missouri took place in Ozark, Missouri at the Ozark Mountain Sports Complex. Okay. It does have a baseball stadium and is home to Mission University's baseball team.
Of course it is.
Because why wouldn't it be, right? And it actually looks fairly decent for what I assume is an NAIA facility. Fairly new. I don't really know much about Mission University baseball. They really bought into the powder blue unis, looking at the website here, though. And they played Missouri Southern, Oklahoma Wesleyan, West Plains, Central Methodist, William Woods, a couple of scout teams, Mineral Area, right? Northern Arkansas, a community college. Yeah, So that's what they played. So that was that. So the Springfield team I was thinking of is also not the 66. That is the Springfield Lucky Horseshoes. For some reason, I got them confused with the Inland Empire 66ers. Now, the Lucky Horseshoes, prior to their weird rebrand here, appear to have been the Springfield Sliders that had a turtle with a baseball bat, and I like that a lot better.
Yeah, it's kind of a vibe.
Exactly right. They were rebranded, though, to be named after this very weird sandwich that has taken place. And
that has taken place.
Yes, in Springfield.
I like when a food is described as if it's an event. The sandwich that happened.
If you look at the sandwich, it definitely looks like an event. Also, is Springfield, Illinois, and not Springfield, Missouri.
What are we looking up here to get to the sandwich? I'm sorry. We're an audio medium. Take care of the listeners here. What do we got to look up?
Look up Springfield Horseshoe, and you will find it. Also, I was mistaken. It was not Jordan George. It was Zach George. There we go. Now you see why I called it an event. Also, Zach George, for his 2 years as a manager.
Just an open-faced sandwich with fries on top?
I don't know. I didn't really spend too much time looking at the sandwich, to be quite honest.
Sometimes the Midwest takes hours of time to select the right ingredients, to cook something slowly, with intention, with feel, with like genuine years of time put into it altogether. And sometimes they simply light a crack pipe and just start throwing things at a plate.
So, according to Wikipedia, the sandwich horseshoes.
Always a good sign for a sandwich, so we have to go to Wikipedia.
Yes. It often consists of thick sliced toasted bread, often Texas toast, a hamburger patty or other choice of meat, French fries, and cheese sauce.
I mean, sounds kind of banging, but
the horseshoe name has been variously attributed to the horseshoe-like shape of the slice of bone-in ham or horseshoe-like arrangement of potato wedges around the ham.
I'm sorry, wait, I did miss that. It's bone-in ham in the sandwich?
Apparently it started with ham. Like it originally was ham, and then they later went to hamburger meat.
Okay. I mean, I was going to say, just do heroin. Like, what? If we're trying to kill ourselves, just, if death is the objective, let's not get soft. Oh, then it is time for my obligatory reference to the April Ludgate of She Only Listens to German death reggae, Halloween sound effects from the 1950s, and Bette Midler, obviously. This is such a solid April Ludgate quote. Parks and Rec, man. Still holds up.
Great show. But there's also a breakfast horseshoe that's available. And the hamburger and French fry are replaced with sausage or bacon, eggs, and hash browns. You can also
now we're talking.
You could switch out the cheese sauce for milk gravy.
Hold on. I'm assuming they mean just like white gravy.
They said milk gravy.
I don't love that.
It explicitly says milk gravy.
Oh God!
There's also another version.
We should really do a deep dive into the best and worst food items on Indy Ball Team, like offerings. But that's a different conversation.
When you do your big road trip, I want you to do that.
We'll see.
Sample the delicacies of the localities. There's also a smaller portion version of this horseshoe sandwich, which I gotta be honest, it doesn't really feel like a sandwich. It just feels like you threw some whatever the hell you had lying around the kitchen on a plate. I'm not gonna lie here.
Yes, my favorite meal, stuff.
Yes, it reminds me of junior year of college. A smaller portion with one slice of bread and one serving of meat is called a pony shoe.
Yes, poverty. Can't afford ramen? Here's this.
And the last point on all of this horseshoe bit, the Springfield Lucky Horseshoes, back when they were still the Sliders, had a bit of a controversy the one night.
Tell me.
Here's the Wikipedia section. I won't give you the title of it because it will give it away.
Okay.
During the 2016 season, the Sliders announced that an in-game promotion during their June 22nd game against the DuPage Drones would feature a 50-50 drawing for a choice of several guns. The promotion drew
electric, dude. I bet that crushed.
The promotion drew attention and anger from a number of fans in the local community, given the short amount of time between the promotion, meaning the giveaway, and the mass murder of 49 people at the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando.
To be fair, they're nowhere near Orlando, and if you have to wait until there's not a mass shooting in this country to do a gun giveaway, you're going to be waiting forever.
The team's owner and
Why
general
has
manager,
a marketing department not hired me, by the way? I am available for work.
the team's owner and general manager, Todd Miller, told local media outlets that he gave thought to canceling the giveaway and planned well in advance of the terrorist act, but instead chose to go forward with the promotion. Miller and the owner of the gun store providing the firearm emphasized that the weapon would not be at the stadium during the giveaway, and
Why not?
that the winner would still have to comply with all applicable laws for purchasing a gun in order to claim their prize. The game
Stuck
saw
at felons.
Now, here's the thing. Remember you said, I bet that crushed?
Yeah.
The game saw triple the number of fans in
Let's
attendance
go,
at a typical
dude.
game during that season.
Know thy market.
The team has since given away 2 more guns at its game.
Yeah, dude. Don't be dumb.
See, part of me finds this hilarious, but the East Coaster in me is like, what the hell is going on here?
The East Coaster in you, buddy. Have you been to a city lately? You don't need to live in the country. You can live in the city. Guns are for everyone. It's America.
Not in the state of New Jersey, they sure as hell aren't.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you over the permanent ringing in my ears. What's up?
Exactly right. Now, see, for most people in New Jersey, it's very difficult to get a gun and damn near impossible to get a concealed carry permit. Now, for me, I have several retired police officers that I would just put down as my Rex, and I'd have a gun shortly. But, we don't all have that benefit.
Cancel the promotion. We can't cancel the promotion. I've already sold these tickets, and I can't give it back because they need to pay the bill for me accidentally shooting myself in the leg with this thing.
Holy hell, dude. So they did 2 gun giveaways in 2018.
Baby. Of course. Why not do 2?
So on Friday, a fan won a pistol worth $1,000. Last month, they gave away a tactical shotgun.
Let's do a tactical shotgun is fun. That's a move.
What are we doing here? Okay, here's the
Immediately
thing.
becomes a gun pod.
This has now turned into a Lucky Horseshoes podcast. Strap in. We're in January and I haven't booked an interview yet.
Yeah, also because I have a bunch of baseball topics, but I might be saving them for my podcast because I'm the worst. If you're craving baseball content, by the way, I'm about to put a deep dive up into park factors, so I can bore you to tears over there, so keep an eye out.
There you go, Chris. You got your wish. Now, back to the horseshoes.
Back to business.
Not as dead as some of the people on the business end of these gun giveaways.
Yikes.
Oh, please, this is America.
I mean, it's fine.
It's this
actually,
America.
Considering how many guns we have, gun violence is actually pretty low.
Well, don't you worry. Once we add that new state that currently is home to the Enchant Group that puts on wonderful winter programs.
Check that out.
Those numbers are going to be a lot different. But
now y'all get out of here.
That
was a bad one. That was really bad.
You go to Medicine Hat and you feel shame. Now, there's no place in baseball with guns, says Matthew McCubbin, Springfield. McCubbin is a father of 4 and says he's anti-gun in general and doesn't like the Sliders giving away a $1,000 pistol to a fan. I got kids here, McCubbin said. What if one of them had a ticket and they won the gun? I just don't believe it.
First of all, then you're a bad dad. You have to be watching the tickets. This is all, again, is the entire argument of personal responsibility. Oh, what if I went to the game and I don't like guns? Then don't put a ticket in for it. What if my kid puts a ticket in? Then you're a bad parent. Go lay in traffic. Like, what do you want? Take some personal freaking responsibility. It's
no, see, no. See, we asked Sliders owner Todd Miller if the giveaway is in poor taste in light of a spike in Springfield gun violence earlier this year. It helps a patrol to actually be able to protect themselves against some of these people, Miller said. People who are creating the gun violence are not the ones who have legally registered guns and are doing things legally. Miller says giving away the guns has boosted fan attendance. The American dream, Miller said. You really can't really go wrong. Baseball, fireworks in Springfield, and certainly for the guns.
I like this guy. Just is like, yeah, dude. Like, here's my thing. Like, if you're gonna, okay, I will always say this, right? I think you need to know your market first of all on any promo. I will also say you need to own it. Like, you got to own it. A couple sides of this are, if you are going to do, let's take it away, something less controversial than gun night, I guess. So Gary doing union night, which has become a staple of the podcast, right?
Yes.
Union night, really night. There is a solid percentage of the country that does not like unions and does not support unions. They just hate when people get a fair wage, and they've been treated badly by their own companies, so they want to treat other people badly, but it's fine. However, if you're going to back it. Like, if you're going to be like, we're doing union night, lean in, do union night. Like, know your market and just trust that you have a good read for it. Can't swing and miss if you're going to do that. But, I'll say, an example was, delving into another hot topic. I remember in Lexington, when a certain owner in 2022 wanted to have proof of vaccine and COVID testing at the gate. In 2022.
I don't think that would do well in 2022 in Lexington.
And just so happened that it would be done by the dear sponsor of the Wild Health Genomes, Wild Health. And it took like multiple people being like, that's not going to work, my guy, to not have that happen. On the flip side, there was a Pride night with, I believe, a drag show. Sorry, you can cut the pause for the right. For a second, I panicked. I couldn't remember the right word. And like, there was immediately like some, I don't know about all that, but like, there was just an agreement of like, hey, if anybody reaches out and has concern about it, we can point them to the fact that we got Faith and Family Night like 2 weeks later. Love to have you here. Here's what we got going. We got a musical act coming in, whatever. Like, if you're going to straddle the line. If you're going to go hard one way, go hard that way. Like, do it. Like, but just commit. The non-committal people are the ones who end up getting caught in the middle, and it doesn't go well.
I agree. I think you'd need to stand by what you're doing here. If there's doubt, then don't do it, because it harms the execution of the idea. And when you're not, it's honestly, it's like throwing off your back foot. It's poorly executed.
It's what it is. It's a comedian who tells a controversial joke where, who gets away with controversial jokes? People who land it.
Yeah.
When it's a good, well-structured joke that people genuinely find funny, even if some people are offended by it, you will be able to get away with it. But like, if you are going to go out there and do something that people don't like, and you're not going to even like execute's a tough word in this situation. Then like, you need, like, that's on you. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
We're way in the weeds here. This is a baseball podcast.
Kind of saved it though, in the topic of just, you got to be confident in what you're doing as part of a team. You can't be thrown off your back foot here. Not only are you now starting to send mixed messages among the people that actually have to go out and execute it, you also are telling basically every fan that like, hey, look, we weren't so sure about this one, boys. Don't expect a good experience here.
Yeah.
Either do it, don't do it. But when you make your decision, stick with it.
I have,
which also, just to talk about the milk gravy real quick. That is, it's just white gravy. I do have Paula Dean's recipe if you want it.
I don't need it. I got one. Let's be honest here. I can give myself my own heart attack. Okay. I was going to say I do have a actual quick baseball note and a Canada related note at some point. You can throw it in wherever you would like in this podcast, my friend.
Okay. You can either do that now, or we could talk about Kokomo for a hot minute and then do that.
Go Kokomo, and then we'll circle back because I got another obscure town for some ball.
Okay. So we're just going to talk about this very briefly because it's not, I won't say it's not indie ball related. It is in the same way that the Jingle thing is, because the owner of the Kokomo, I believe it's Jackrabbits, if I'm not mistaken, they are owned by ROC Ventures, which owns the Milwaukee Milkmen, and thus that makes it related. through that. So tangentially related, I guess, is the best way of putting it. But the Kokomo Jackrabbits have put a pause on their operations. The city has filed a lawsuit against them over the lease renewal. The long and short of this is the lease got renewed in 2019 for 5 years, which would bring us to the end of 2024. And then at the end of their lease, they have a 30-day window to either submit their renewal, meaning they will again get another 5 years, or do nothing and say, we're going to go in a different direction. The city alleges that the team never submitted anything. They did not submit the renewal. They needed to submit it in writing for it to be official. The team did not do that. And they're saying the team never gave them, an answer on that. The team disputes that and says, we didn't know it had to be in writing. It was never made clear to us it had to be in writing. And we told them back in May we had the intention of renewing it. And now it's gone to the courts to figure this out. Either way, the Northwoods League, where the Jackrabbits played in, put out their schedule recently, and it does not include them. And then the team put out a statement saying that they're on hiatus for 2025. It doesn't mean the end of Jackrabbit baseball, but don't hold your breath on it. We want to play, but you never know. That whole deal. So, yeah, we're expecting a court ruling sooner than later on the matter, but we all know how court rulings can go. Thoughts?
It should be an easy case. They didn't sign the damn paperwork.
Yeah.
So I guess multiple things. Everyone's dumb here, I feel like, but there might be some more details because my initial thing is obviously you have to sign the paperwork. What are you, 5? How are you running a ball club? Yeah, dude, you have to sign the paper. What? Now, here's my thing is if you and I are going contract to contract, right?
Yes.
And then 1 year at a time for this high money podcast here.
Yes.
And I say in May that, yeah, dude, I'm in for next year for sure. And then you just proceed to never bring it up again. And then you're like, well, you never submitted it in writing, with no reminder, hey, you're just a reminder, there's a date on that, to send that. Obviously there was intent from the city on this, and maybe petty, maybe legit. There's a real possibility that maybe this is one of those pain in the ass teams to work with. Yeah, it could go that way. However, I don't know. People seem pretty genuinely not thrilled about this, which a lot of the people, you don't have those typical comments other than the one where they went back and forth with that guy that are like, oh, well, this organization kind of had that coming or whatever, that they were badly run. I think most people can probably say, yeah, the team messed this up. There's probably some underlying shenanigans going on there that would allow for such an obvious mistake to happen. But it is you got to look at the city here and be like, come on, you knew what you're doing here. And I'm curious because now you have a stadium that's just hanging out there with no team in it, I guess. So what's the plan? That's all. That's what I got.
Yeah. So that's my immediate thought too. It's in May, they clearly had an intent and they've been there for 9 years. So that tells me they would obviously want to continue to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that around July or August, right, when the contract's in its dying days, you go, hey, if you're still down, we would like to get that paperwork in now so that way we could process it. You don't have to wait till the end of this thing, or at the very least, don't forget to get that in. You would assume that. So that makes me think either they were told that and they still ignored it, or the city was like, it wouldn't be the end of the world to lose these guys. And this guy were like, don't say nothing. This is our ticket out. So that's my kind of immediate impression here. I will say, I think Kokomo's enough of a market where they'll get another team in there that's summer college and they'll be fine. I don't think that's the end of the world. It seems like the reason why they can't really move forward right now is that the team has not left. And that's kind of the problem. But also the whole staff got let go to my knowledge. So I don't know who the hell's still there then. If nobody's working for the team anymore and the team's essentially disbanded for all intents and purposes, and they don't have a lease, and it doesn't look like they're going to win, then what the hell's there? Just some boxes and office furniture? At that point, it's forfeited property. I mean, it's been over 90 days since this contract ended at the end of September. So, if it's been all of October, all of November, all of December, and now a third of January, like, that's abandoned property at that point. It's been 100 days.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see here. There are some articles. It's a little tough to figure out exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, like, I don't want to go into too much detail.
It's not technically indie ball, but it does seem like there's been...
interesting. And it talks about an indie ball ownership.
Yeah. Which, they might just be typifying that as summer ball. Talking about some sort of lawsuit back in the fall, probably related to this, maybe. But Northwoods League was getting in on it. This is the same issue dating back. So it's been going on for a while, but they just now decided they weren't going to be able to. They provided legal notice the last time, or written notice the last time. Yeah,
so they knew they had to.
Yeah. Sports leagues. Let me see. I'm just doing a quick scroll through.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. The Jackrabbits' inaugural season was met with much fanfare, with the community packing Kokomo Municipal Stadium for the team's opener on May 31st, 2015. They continued to do so throughout the rest of the season, despite the Jackrabbits posting a .500 win percentage and not making the Prospect League playoffs. The team did make the playoffs in both 2016 and 2018. In the latter, the team posted a 37-22 regular season record, made it to the Prospect League Championship, where it was swept by the Terre Haute Rex. The next year, 2019, would be a year of major change. The team announced it would be leaving the league and joining the Northwoods, with the idea that the move would allow fans to see a high caliber play. The Jackrabbits' move hit a bump in the road almost immediately. The organization saw a noticeable drop in attendance in 2019, brought on by an increased season ticket and regular season ticket price that alienated many fans. I wonder if costs went up in that league, maybe, so they raised prices. Anyway. The organization saw a noticeable drop in attendance. Yada. The organization told the Tribune at the time it saw less season ticket sales in 2019 than in years past. Regarding attendance in the first 10 home games of 2019, the Jackrabbits averaged 700 fans, cut nearly in half from the first 10 games of 2018. Damn. Something else happened. I guess maybe it's just prices, but dude, that hurts. The team averaged 1,400 through their first 10 games of 2017, about the same 2016, about the same about 1,200 2015. The Jackrabbits did lower prices as a reaction to lower attendance. Reversal seems to have helped, as the team ended the season with an average attendance of 1,000, according to figures provided by the Northwoods League, but the damage was done. In the subsequent years, Jackrabbits' average attendance was consistently, I did see they were bottom 3 in the league, and Northwoods League is a big league. Average attendance hit a new low at 792 per game in 2022. That's despite making the playoffs the year before. Average attendance was 798. Okay. The Jackrabbits' level of play has not helped the attendance woes. Since moving to the Northwoods League, they're winning at 40% clip. Jeez.
I will tell you that they have a very robust team store.
According to the use agreement, the city has paid $5,000 a year in rent for the use of the stadium, which is nothing. Good Lord.
$5,000.
That figure, the figure has the possibility of increasing if the baseball team hits certain yearly revenue figures. For example, if the annual revenue is between 1.8 million and 2 million, the team pays $20,000 in additional rent, and upward of $100,000 additional rent if the revenue is 2.8 million or more. It's unclear what the annual revenue is. The use agreement specifies such information is to remain confidential, and the city responded to a public records request from the Tribune regarding financial reports, but saying it didn't have such financial reports.
There's more to this here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost willing to wager that they said they wanted to come back. They didn't get the paperwork in on time. And the city was like, oh, nope, you're not, no, can't do it anymore. Didn't meet the deadlines. And they said, we can get rid of a guy or a team, entity, whatever you want to call it, that is underperforming and not providing a lot of revenue here, and get somebody else in that will not underperform.
Probably at a better price, by the way.
Yep. And generate more revenue for the city themselves.
It feels like they know somebody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
By God, is that the Frontier League's music?
I don't know if it's that.
Dude, they go to anywhere and everywhere under the sun.
Maybe. Not 100% on that one.
I don't think it's a good idea for the record there. I lump it into just because you can doesn't mean you should.
I mean, they already increased the talent level once and it went badly.
Because they're an unsustainable number of teams. This is just too big for an indie ball league.
Kokomo, rather.
Okay, in that regard, I always held firm that the talent level doesn't necessarily matter for the average fan. Like that's the reality. It's one that I don't necessarily love, but it's the reality.
But it is the reality. Yep, I agree.
Yeah. So there's that. On the Frontier League front, I just kind of hate it. I think they are getting way too big. And
I think they're trying to expand their way out of a footprint problem, which we don't need to discuss, although I do have a follow-up on that point.
Yeah, I don't want to go too much into that because I do have content related to the Frontier League coming out next month.
Okay. It's not Frontier. Well, maybe, but...
Yeah. But we want to put a pin in Kokomo and then move on to your ideas? Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the Kokomo situation. We'll watch and see if anything interesting happens with it, and then we'll get back to it if it does. But if not, just keep an eye on that. I think it's more or less curious that you're having a team that's owned by ROC that's clearly beefing with the city after having a different team that is owned by ROC that wasn't exactly described as a good neighbor.
Fair enough. That's an interesting point.
That's the interesting angle for me. Like, how many incidents do they have to have with locals before we start going like, maybe?
Let me think here. Oh, so I was just going to say, I've talked before about my pet project of getting an indie ball team to Lake Charles. Not that I'm really doing anything actively about it, but other than talking about it. But I do think possibly entering the conversation as a town that I have minimal research on, but I definitely feel like has potential. Windsor, Canada, dude. Got
Windsor,
the new bridge.
I think may have had a team at one point.
New bridge opening between Detroit and Windsor. Windsor's a beautiful town. Might be having some change up in how it is to get between one country to the other. So, just, something to keep an eye on. That's all. That's really the only note I had.
Plus, the Windsor Spitfires are always a damn fine team.
Yeah, something like that. I think it's like youth baseball, essentially.
It's an OHL team.
Wow. Oh, really? All right. They do. Oh, it's those Stars, I think is the one I was thinking.
Yes, the Windsor Stars are that.
There we go.
There's also the Windsor Royals.
Famous.
Of course. Low key, though, they actually were good in their league for some time. Founded in 48, 77 years ago, play in Holloway Field. Oh, wait, never mind. Wrong Windsor.
Oh.
This is Windsor, Australia. Damn those Brits and their unoriginal naming systems.
Tough one. Hate to see that.
I really do. But yeah, I don't dislike Windsor as a possibility. I think it also helps flesh out more of that Canadian market and could really just give you a Canadian division, which I think would be good for both Canadian baseball, the league as a whole, and the markets involved.
And I think once that bridge opens, the Gordie Howe Bridge, by the way, I think there's potential for, because Windsor's supposed to be really nice, potentially some people who are comfortable hopping the border to live in Canada in a nice town and then commute into Detroit if that's where they live. Or if that's where they work with.
It is close to a lot of metro markets too. That's another plus there. Got enough people there where it's very much sustainable.
Anyway, that's all I had. Just a quick little note.
It's very interesting. Let me just see here because now you got me on this rabbit hole a little bit. Got the OHL team, obviously, then a bunch of minor events too. Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. I'm curious about. There's not too much else there. Is there a baseball stadium that would work?
I don't think so. I think that's the obstacle there. They have to build something.
Yeah, then that's kind of a big obstacle, is it not?
Well, depends on the vibe. Depends how badly Windsor wants a team.
I don't think there's that much of a demand.
You don't know. Could be if more Americans move over. Could be a nice way to get more Americans to move over. Taste of home.
But they're already American in Windsor, Ontario.
I mean, kind of.
Give it a couple of weeks. It won't be a kind of no more.
Hey, man. Welcome back to America Frontier League Championship Trophy.
So stupid.
Love it. I'm okay with that.
I didn't mean to tweet. So they do have baseball state. They have baseball fields, not baseball stadiums.
Yes. Yep.
So that's something.
Something indeed.
It would have to be Frontier. I would assume climate's fairly similar to Ottawa, even though they're in literally different ends of Ontario. But I don't hate it. Did we want to try to squeeze in that conversation on best and worst teams to work for, or are we comfortable calling this week where it's at?
I'm comfortable calling this week.
Okay. Because I do think it is an interesting conversation, because there's definitely
which we should still do on the podcast. I think that's a fair topic.
All right. Why don't we put that for next week? Why don't we make that the big thing for next week then?
All right. That works. Let's get some more baseball, like on-field talk at some point. I was going to mention Glendenning, but
Glendenning's interesting. That's a fun name, Glendenning.
I know, right? I knew a Glendenning.
Denning. Yeah, right. You want to go to your plugs?
Sure. Indy Ball Nation, YouTube, podcast platforms, Instagram, Twitter. I'll have a couple more things posting. I'm editing. Well, am I recording? No, I'm recording the Park Factor video shortly, so I'll have that up. And then another video deep diving the history and disastery of the Northern Colorado Owls and where that is and how that relates to Grand Junction. So that should be coming through in the next week. Probably going to do 2 separate videos on that one. And at some point, I'll find another on-field topic to jump into. So we'll see. We'll see where I land.
You're right. Indy Ball Pod on Twitter, Indy Ball Report, everywhere else. Definitely tune into the website, indyballreport.com, because I'm going to have an article out on the 15th. First one of the year.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah. This one, admittedly, is kind of out of place for the time of year. It would have made more sense to put it at a different place in the year, a little bit closer to season, but it is fixing the All-Star game. Going to go over the current formats, past formats, some possibilities to change it up to, pros and cons with each of those, and just kind of give some ideas and talk about it. I mentioned it a lot in the past, so I figured why not write about it. So that'll be up there. And then end of the month on the 30th, I'll mention it more, I guess, in 2 weeks from now, when it'll be more timely. We're going to have an article up on New Year's resolutions. I know it'll be a little bit late on, about a month behind on.
You do know how to be timely.
I know. It's just really on brand. I really should have switched the 2 around and made the All-Star thing a video and the other thing an article.
Baby.
But nah, we're committed to it. So there'll be a New Year's resolution type of thing. It's going to be off on each of the 4 major leagues. 1 or 2 things on each of them that they need to try to do better going forward in the new year. Admittedly, it is going to be a video that's based in criticism, but I'm going to try to keep it constructive, so that way it stays, fairly lighthearted. But yeah, so we're going to try to get some content out there, and I got some kind of fun Instagram story posts that'll be up, and we're going to start to dig through the contract data and hopefully have an Instagram post a week too. I'd like to get, a couple fun story posts a week, of one like Instagram or Twitter post a week, and then the video and article once a month. I think that's fairly doable. Want to keep it kind of small in the beginning, get a routine that's working, and actually get content up. So keep an eye on the socials for all of that. Yeah, that's the show. We're back again. Not dead. That's good. So voice held up for pretty much the whole time here. Happy about that.
Proud of you.
We're going to cut it here. Glad to be back. We'll always be here. But until next time, don't forget to play ball.